Hello everyone, this is the Obstacle Races New Zealand podcast, and my name is Max Bell, and joining me today, as always, is Stephen Steady.
Hi, how are we all? How are you, Max? How's your week been so far?
It's been pretty good. Been tired, catching up on the week, but it's been good. Yeah, just started heading to the gym. I know you mentioned that as well, that you were heading to the gym again, but I've started CrossFit again, which is interesting. So went a few days ago and I'm still sore from that, but it's good.
Well, I'm sort of at the gym. Today was the first day of our gym, but they're doing boot camps on the Ellerslie domain because we're got to be less than 10 people and 5 metres apart and not allowed to use equipment and stuff like that. But it's a start.
Nice.
Felt good to get out again and not just run around the park. So,
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like good fun.
Yes, yeah. And I knocked off a couple more volcanoes over the weekend. I've set myself a goal to run all the volcanoes around Auckland for the month of October. So,
Oh well.
I've done 11 so far. So.
Is that running up the volcanoes or?
Just up, yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know Auckland. They're not. How close are they? You're not connecting the runs together, are you? I
did one run for 22 k's on Saturday that did 4 volcanoes, but no, they're too far apart. And I've got to get. There's a couple I'm not going to get to. They're out on the islands, and to get out to the island and be able to run around and get back on a ferry on a ferry in the same day is. Not good because we're still working on winter times and COVID. So I don't think there's 52 of them all up, but I don't think I'll get all of them now because there's a couple of them on the other side of the border's shifted actually, so I might get the ones down between Auckland and Waikato. But
nice. Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yep. No, there was something to do. Considering all the events and everything, as we're going to talk about, have all been getting postponed and cancelled, and so I'm not sure there's going to be much on that front for myself, anyway, for this year. I think.
Same. I feel the same way because I was entered in 2 races this month. They've both been cancelled, so my running's been pretty slack. I think I went 2 runs last week, and one of them was pretty short. It's hard to find motivation, but getting back in the gym, I'm liking that at the moment.
Yep. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yes. So we interviewed Liam for this week's episode. Liam Wilkinson from Asset Fit, and we had a good chat to him, which we'll get to in a little while.
Yeah, it's a good episode actually. I just listened back to it myself, and he talks about how we got the bug for endurance sports and obstacle sports in particular, but he also talks a lot about other sort of races, and we talk a lot about World's Toughest Mudder, his experience over there, and he offers a lot of OCR coaching advice that I think will be really helpful.
Yeah.
And his audio makes us sound good, I think. makes our overall podcast sound good. He has a really clear mic listening back to it.
Okay.
It's something you and I need to do, put it on our to-do list to upgrade our microphone equipment.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll develop. I think the more we go, the more we improve.
Yes.
And this is a good episode. It's really cool. I think listeners will get a lot out of listening to the interview.
Okay. Do you want to cover off events that have been cancelled or postponed or moved?
Yeah, so I mentioned the 2 races I was entered in. They've both been cancelled, which they were the Mudder and Tough Guy and Gal Rotorua. So they were both postponed earlier actually, and now they've both come back and saying they're both cancelled completely, which is a bit of a shame, but both cancelled due to COVID, which is understandable.
Yeah.
And also, last episode of the podcast, we interviewed Martin, the organizer of the Wanaka Dash. Unfortunately, he has had to cancel the Wanaka Dash.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the only one that I have. OCR race I had coming up, and this year, because I haven't signed up for UA yet, because I'm still worried they're going to cancel on us. But it was the last one, and he's cancelled now, so no events on the horizon, at any rate.
Yeah, Ultimate Athlete's a bit tricky, isn't it? I was thinking that a few days ago myself about booking flights and stuff, but I don't know. I don't see how it's December. I don't see how Auckland can get down to level 2 or 1 by time. I'm not sure.
Well, we still what are we today? The 12th, and they're still saying we've got at least 7 days where we currently are. So that's going to take us through pretty much before the end of October, before they even take us out of level 3. And even then, if we're lucky. So.
And under level 2, it's still restricted to 100
still restricted
at gatherings.
So, I think it'll be, what do you call it? Because when you have a look, some of the big events like the Auckland Marathon that's been moved to next year, the Xterra has cancelled pretty much all of their events. The only one they've still got on is the Waihi Duel, and I think the West Coaster may still be there, but they cancelled all their Taupo races in the last few days. So, so a lot of trail running and all that's all been taken off the table as well.
Yeah, tough times. At least there's a new race we saw, a new obstacle course race we saw being announced, which is exciting. Pretty ballsy move to do it during COVID.
During COVID lockdown, yeah.
But Mud, Sweat and Tears, which is, they hold 2 races, one in Christchurch, one in Dunedin. But they've announced a new race called Mud, Sweat and Tears Blast. It's held at their same Christchurch venue. So I don't know exactly what the details are yet, if it's going to be part of their current Christchurch event or it is going to be 2 separate events, 2 separate dates. But it's a 5K using obstacles, and on their description they describe it as an adventure race, which I'm not sure if they're using the correct terminology for that.
No.
But they do describe it as an adventure race, and it does have obstacles in it. And it's only 5K, and there's not too much more information out yet. No, registrations aren't open at this point. But it's very cool to see a new race being announced in these times.
Yes.
And another race which is very exciting is Rescue Run, which is an obstacle race that was last held in 2018, I think. But they recently put out a teaser on their Facebook, on their social media. They've uploaded a new logo, which says Rescue Run.
Rescue Run 2022.
Yeah, it has a new date below it.
So
that's awesome.
Yes, that would be good.
They're coming back.
Didn't do that one, but I went out with and seen Hayden Wells, who we've also done an interview with, which will be in the future. And he had a blast. He raves about it. So
yeah,
it would be good.
Looks really cool. I'd love to do it. It's organised by Brand Events, and it's an emergency services themed event. I believe there's I think it's a team event, and there's like challenges that are, themed with the emergency services. It's a big fundraising event. Looks really cool. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see what new details on that emerge.
Okay, I don't know of any other events. So shall we have a bit of a look at results? You got the results for the WC 100 metre. We went through the 5 and 15 last time, but did you have the results for the 100 metre one, which was still in play last time we put it up?
Yeah, last time we talked, the 100 metre hadn't taken place yet, but I do have the results here. So they hold an 100 metre championship as part of their event too, and for the males, first place was Joe Moravsky with a time of 36.9 seconds. Second place was VJ Jones for a time of 38.4 seconds. And third was Benny Gifford with 39 seconds. And then on the female side, first place was Jalisi Himka in 1 minute 0.8. Second was Yaris Cruz in 1:14.1. And third was Malia Oshner in 1:14.4. Wow. 0.3 of a second difference between second and third place there.
Uh-huh. Real good.
And I have the team relay results as well. You want to mention those? Do you have those pulled up, or should I read those out?
No, I've got Spartan Ultra World Championships.
Okay, I can quickly go over the team.
Yep, you do the team, yep, and I'll...
Yeah, and just to mention, these are the pro results, the ones I just read.
Yep.
For the 100 meter with a pro division, and these are the team pro results. The full results are available on the OCR World Championships website. But for the team relay pro results, the women's, start with the women's, their first place was Team Chris plus TBD. Came in at a time of 1:02. Second place was Team Golden Girls, 1:03.39. Third place was Team Grip It and Rip It, 1:16.30. And on the men's, first place team was Team Selming USA, 52.28. Second place was Team Indian Mud Run Pro team, a time of 55.28. Third place was Team Fitzone OCR, time of 55.33. And there's a co-ed division as well. So first place co-ed team was Team Noob Sanity at 52.30. Second was Team Innovate at 54.09. And third was Team Name TBD. Does that mean team name to be decided?
To be decided.
They managed to come third place with a name like that. So they had 57.57.
Yeah. Some pretty close results in some of that.
Yeah.
So I've got the results of the Spartan Ultra World Championships held at Telluride, Colorado over the weekend. I was just trying to find out the distance, but I can't see. For the women elite, Ria Coble did 120 kilometres, 10 laps in 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 0 penalties. Alexa Rodrina did 98 kilometres, 8 laps in 21 hours, 45, no penalties. Katie Knight did 89 kilometres again and 8 laps in 23 hours and 11, but she's got a 1 hour 30-minute penalty time. So Ria absolutely ran away with that, 2 laps and 22 Ks in front of everybody, so it must have been about 11 kilometres around. For the men, Mark Goodut did 142 kilometres, 12 laps in 24 hours and 10 minutes. Tyler Veerman, 131 kilometres, 11 laps for 22 hours and 11 minutes. And Josh Furore also did 131 kilometres, 11 laps in 24 hours and 20 minutes. And most of the top men and women, top 10, all did it with no penalties. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
with these World Championships taking place recently, the OCR World Championship and the Spartan Ultra World Championship, I'm not sure if there's any Kiwis who were over there participating.
Doesn't show any in the I'm only looking at the flags. They're all Americans and Canadians and 1 Russian in the men, and they were all Americans and a Mexican and a Canadian in the women's elite.
Yeah, no, some of the people usually go over to the OCR-WC weren't able to, just due to COVID restrictions.
Looking at all participants, and I'm not just looking at the American. They're all American flags. A couple of Canadians, a French flag there, and all the rest are Americans. There's a blue and white one, but I'm not sure where that one's from. But other than that,
yeah, it's something we need to find out if there were Kiwis this year, and we should definitely get some Kiwis on who've competed in them.
So yes, okay. Well, that's all the results I have currently. Not much else happening around the world from what I can find out.
Yeah. But in other news, our podcast has been added to Apple Podcasts directory, which is awesome. So that's one of the big podcast directories, a place a lot of people find podcasts to listen to. So hopefully that way we'll expand, we'll reach some new listeners, and people can subscribe on iTunes and other places that the Apple directory reaches.
Yep. So that now we must be across all formats now, of the major ones: Spotify, Apple, Google.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah, Google, Stitcher, Anchor. What else are we on? YouTube. I've been putting the podcast up on YouTube.
Okay.
As well. Yep. People can find us everywhere. Yes.
Okay, and do you want to talk about the New Zealand Podcast Awards? I hadn't heard of that until you brought it up a little while ago. So.
Yeah, it's open now. So it's something I just stumbled across on Instagram. So they are open now for people have nominated podcasts, and they're open for listener choice voting at the moment. Up until the 30th of October, you can vote for the listener's choice category. And the winners of all the different categories are going to be announced November the 7th. I believe this is the first year the awards are being run, and hopefully it gives us something to aspire to. Yes, I don't think we could have stood a chance if we nominated ourselves this first year. But now we have a whole year.
A whole year to get ourselves
up our game.
Yes.
So watch out. We'll be in there next year. Figure out what category nominate us for listeners' choice as well.
Yes.
We'll put it on our calendar.
All right. Shall we talk about our who we got on this week, and then cut to the interview?
Yeah, absolutely. So Liam Wilkinson, we'll interview him this week, and mentioning World Championships previously as well. We talk to him a bit about World's Toughest Mudder, which is sort of the Tough Mudder World Championship. It's interesting to hear his experience competing a number of years ago in that.
Yeah, he's a certified United Endurance sports coach also, which we talk a bit about his coaching. He's in the process of, he has got his own business, Ascent Fit, but he's in the process of trying to get himself a gym of his own. He shares one from what I can gather at the moment, but does a lot of coaching and a lot of training with like-minded people around Auckland. He's given us some people to talk to that have raced international OCR events and things like that.
Awesome. Let's cut to it.
All right.
I've been coaching, I guess, fitness in general for probably it must be over 12 years now. Previous to that, I was doing martial arts in a really big way for a long time. So I think I did over 16 years of martial arts stuff before stopping that and sort of focusing a lot more on just the endurance sports side. But that all came about from initially doing, I guess, falling in love with martial arts initially, and then spending a bit of time in the film industry and doing some qualifications in that, and then the big global financial crisis hit, and I thought it was just a really good opportunity to study because work was a little bit less. Well, it was still there, but it wasn't paid as well. So I thought, hey, I'll do some study, and that's when I got into the whole personal training and coaching in a big way. Funnily enough, through high school, though, as an academic subject, I was always quite good at that in physics. So it's always been a passion, but I didn't actually think it would be a viable career until I started rethinking things sort of in my mid-20s, or early to mid-20s. Yeah.
It's quite a hard career, isn't it? I had, at least for me in the background, knew some people who went on to become PTs, and I don't know if any of them lasted, but from what I understand, there's quite a high churn rate, isn't there? A lot of people get into trainers, and then a lot of people can't make it.
I think it's like 90 to 95% of all people that study it don't stick around for more than a year or two. So, but I think, a lot of it just comes down to when you're a coach or you're a personal trainer, most of it really comes down to why you want to do it. And I always wanted to do it because I'm fascinated with problem solving and mechanics and biomechanics, and I love the idea of applying a training stimulus and seeing what happens. But I've always been really keen to help people. Like, I thought maybe I'd be a teacher if I wasn't doing this. So there's other people might go into it because they love training themselves. And when you realize that you become a bit of a counselor on the side, that sort of baggage, I think, can really deter people if it's not what their passion is, I
think so, yeah. I think just from knowing people who've gotten into it, it's like a lot of people want to just get paid to work out. And
it's a very good way to
realize that you have to be a people person and help people, and that may put them off a bit. I guess, if it's your passion, you stick around and get to work with people every day.
Yeah, and a lot of people, the way you help them has a really big flow-on effect in terms of other aspects of their life that's not just physical, whether it be mental or even just creating a balance point with work and personal, and you sort of become a bit of a catalyst with their training. So it's pretty satisfying if you're searching for that, I guess, that benefit of going, hey, I can actually help someone directly, and this is a way of doing it. It's a really fulfilling career if you know what you're getting into. Is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I was wanting to ask you about your experiences first, and OCR and racing and fitness. So world's toughest mudder, you did that.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What year was that in?
That's a good question. I think it was 2016.
Ballpark, 2016.
Yeah. Well, I'll back it up a fraction, and I'll just give you guys a bit of context because I probably just said a whole bunch of random stuff about martial arts and then training. But I never really had a lot of, I guess, gravitation towards athletics or anything as a kid, and part of that was because I lived out in the Wops. So I don't think realistically it was an option for my parents to ever try and introduce that. And so after doing social sports for a while, at 13, I did martial arts, and that was great because you start to, I think, understand biomechanics, and you get proprioception of your muscles, and you get flexibility, and you understand how to generate force. And that's, I think, a really good concept if you want to, I guess, understand your body and how to improve it. And coming off the back of that, I went and did my first qualification in film, my first degree, and I met a guy called Pete Strulick, who maybe will one day listen to this. He's a fireman now, but he's an incredibly talented athlete, and at sort of the age of 18 or 19, he introduced me, and he goes, "Oh, Liam, let's go do the Moro Madness." He goes, "You look like you can run," which I don't think I really could. But I did a whole bunch of training with him and felt like rubbish, and then we went and entered, and we were the only two-person team in a relay. So I'm pretty sure the Moro Madness was organised by Lactic Turkey Events, so Sean Collin, the legend that he is, in the earlier days. And I think that's sort of what spawned things like the Riverhead Relapse, the backyard Riverhead Relapse, because this was, a team relay, and it was in the Riverhead Forest. So that was a great experience. It was my first big actual event. It was in a team, and I guess it was what you'd call quite a big endurance event. Like, I think I knocked up about 36 Ks over 12 hours. For me, broke me, pretty much put me in bed for a week. I'm pretty sure I was injured for a few months after it.
Wow.
But that was probably where I caught the bug. And after that, I've just done huge amounts of exterior and a whole bunch of stuff. My first tough mudder which was I think either Auckland or Aussie, but it was in 2013, and that's where I got the OCR bug, because that was like, I think the versatility of what was required probably suited me. I mean, the physicality outside of just running, like the mental strength, the conquering fear, and the skill set required from a strength and sort of agility point of view, really, really, I guess, closely aligned with some of the thrill you get off technical trail running, but included upper body as well. So yeah, that was my lead in, and from that I did heaps of events in Australia and New Zealand, whether it be Tough Mudder. I started doing some Spartans, and from that, I think in 2016 I went and did World's Toughest Mudder. So yeah, I'll let you ask any questions you want about that.
Then you went on to Hawaii too, didn't you? Didn't you go to Hawaii and did?
Yes, I did a Spartan trifecta in Hawaii, but that was pretty. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard to describe. The really big endurance events are what really challenge me, because I'm probably not naturally gifted enough or fast enough to be competitive in like a 5 kilometer distance or even a 10 kilometer. So I sort of start benefiting in that 15 kilometer plus format. Spartan trifecta was great. It was a great experience, and it was an incredible environment. Like doing Hawaii at the Kulalau Ranch, which is where they filmed the first Jurassic Park films. That's amazing. Like, what an incredible experience. But World's Toughest Mudder was definitely like a whole different beast. Yeah, do you want me to give a rundown on what?
Go for it. Yep.
So for people who hadn't done World's Toughest Mudder, I mean, the location's changed a few times, but when we went, it was in out of Las Vegas in the Nevada desert. And the thing that's amazing about this event is the sheer scale of the obstacles and the scale of what's required, because it's a 24-hour, I guess, loop that you do. And in the desert, you know, it can get down to 0 degrees or lower at night, and then it can get up to, you know, 40 degrees in the day. So you're actually running in a wetsuit all night. And then if you want to sleep, you have got a pit area. And if you don't want to, which anyone that's competitive doesn't, you sort of just have a pit crew that sort of, I guess, is feeding you some of your nutrition lap on lap. And everyone's got different ideas, I guess, on what the differences are between Spartan and Tough Mudder as a franchise or a brand. But the way I've always put it to people is they're proper OCR. They've got a big running component. They're a mid to long form OCR event. But Spartan, I think, has always got a really appealing sort of technical aspect. It's you need a lot of strength and skills to be able to complete some of the obstacles, whereas Tough Mudder, a lot of it is scale and fear based. So if you're scared of heights, or if the idea of letting go of something and grabbing something else 5 meters above a pond in the middle of the night where you can't see anything, like, that's the sort of, I guess, the difference. And that's pretty much what it was like in the desert. It was pretty crazy. Everyone's just wandering around like zombies with head torches, and yeah, you're just going.
It sounds yeah. It's amazing. World's Toughest Mudder, just the experiences. I think some of the best stories I've heard just listening to other OCR podcasts is people talking about like their time at World's Toughest Mudder, and yeah, just such a different animal from like what we have in New Zealand and so much other OCR events. And it's I think it's an experience. It's almost like going to a concert, right? Like, you can have your favorite band, but if you go to a concert, there's an atmosphere and experience you can't get anywhere else. And I think something like World's Toughest Mudder in particular has that scale, has that sort of presence about it. I definitely do it, but I never had the desire to feel like I had to go back and do it again. But that's partly because I think, even though I got a little bit injured right near the end of the event, you know, the best I would have placed is probably like 30th, which, you know, some people would be like, that's really good, but there's no way I could even vie for a podium place. I mean, the guys like Ryan Atkins and all the crazies like the Lindsays and stuff that are smashing out some of those top times. I mean, a lot of these people are
skilled to the level of, they potentially could have been track and field in the Olympics or close to, and then they're crossing over into the sport where they may have even a bigger edge. So I think the biggest thing is the reason you go over is to experience it and just do the best you can do, and just get that satisfaction of knowing that you've been in this environment that probably 95 or maybe 95% of the population just wouldn't be able to cut it at all because they haven't put the effort in or the training. But what an experience to be able to go do and try and complete.
Sounds like an awesome, inspiring event as well, with Tough Mudder having, the multiple levels. And Tough Mudder's not in New Zealand anymore, unfortunately, but Tough Mudder as a brand had you have I can't remember what they are, the different distances, and it builds up, and they have their competitive events, and World's Toughest is their championship 24-hour event. It sounds like, from other people talking about it, I guess if you want to talk about it too, but it sounds like the community at World's Toughest is one of the amazing things about it, just the sense of everyone helping each other.
100%. Yeah, I think you still see it in Spartan and stuff as well, or other local obstacle course races, but they pride themselves on it being, in a sense, a team event. So there would be very few athletes, I mean, even in the top ranks, that if someone was struggling, they probably would still give them a hand up rather than just trying to better their own position. And I think that's really nice. And when you see the scale of some of the obstacles, you can tell that a lot of people, the mental struggle is probably even bigger than the physical, like jumping off a 12 to 14 meter cliff into a lake in the middle of the night with just one or two glow sticks down there and not being able to see anything. It's quite a weird experience to just let yourself go and sort of just go with it. Yeah. And there's people that you'd be doing maybe one or two laps and they're still standing on the platform just trying to get the courage to jump off. So yeah.
So how far is one lap?
That's a really good question. It's all in miles, so I can't bloody imperial units.
Well, how many miles? And we'll quickly Google it.
I have a feeling it was it 5 or 10 miles? I know that I ended up doing I think 60 or 65 miles before I got injured. And the guys that win do like crazy, like 125, I think was what the year was that I was there. Obviously, each course or location change offers a little bit of a different maybe ability or expectation of what you can achieve. But yeah. So I think I pretty much did almost 100 kilometers over 24 hours.
K's is 65 miles, pretty close to 100 kilometers. So.
Yeah, I think I did either 98 or 102 or something, and that was with the last 5 hours having fallen off an obstacle and hit the ground a little bit hard and banged my knee up. So yeah.
And roughly how many obstacles?
Oh, I wish I had more information on this. I should have been more prepared for this question.
It's an OCR podcast.
I know. I thought the thing is, the format's changed a bit. So they went, I think, to, was it Pittsburgh or something, straight after Vegas, and that was just so much more brutal because the temperatures were just minus 10, minus 20. It was, you had to wear a wetsuit the whole time, and people were just, the completion rate in general was almost nothing. Like, it was such a small amount could get through the whole time period. With the obstacles, they had a lot of little ones and then a lot of big ones. And I mean, each lap there would be, I'm guessing it must have been close to 20 or 25 obstacles in a lap. And some of them were big. So you've got things like the cliff jump, you've got things like Kong with the rings, you've got where you jump off a platform onto a swing bar, and then it's like a trapeze where you have to go to the other swing bar, let go, and hang on to another one, and then onto a massive crash pad with water underneath you. There was a lot of. They also, I think, used that event to premiere some obstacles, like electroshock therapy and stuff was on that, and they had Funky Monkey. I think that was the first year they'd done Funky Monkey, and that was at World's Toughest, and that's what I fell off. But in general, it was very cool. In saying that, like I say all this, I love the experience, but I actually like Spartan events better. In general, I'd never take that experience back, but from a pure racing sort of point of view, Spartan I like a little bit more, just because of the technicality of the obstacles and some of the strength and skill required.
Ryan Atkins won the year you were there, and he did 100 miles exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, 100 miles. It might have been the year after that they ramped it up in a big way. He was in a team potentially the year after as well.
Yeah, we won it next year as well, but it was only 95 mile that year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes about sense. Yeah.
I can't find out any obstacles.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely about scale. It's not like, I don't know if you'd even worry so much about the obstacles. You're in a haze most of the time. And being in the desert, it's crazy because sometimes, there's no lights apart from on the obstacles. So you'd be running along and then once or twice you sort of doze off a bit and you might have just run off the trail and then you're like, hang on, you could just run straight into the middle of the desert if you weren't careful.
So how do you find, I guess, like New Zealand Tough Mudder, New Zealand Spartan? You've entered Spartan and Tough Mudder overseas. How did you find the New Zealand Tough Mudder and the New Zealand Spartan compared to their overseas counterparts?
That's a really good question. That's a good question. Are they
similar? It's just the same thing copied to New Zealand, or
no,
a bit different? Yeah.
No, New Zealand's probably what you'd call a slightly scaled down version. The Tough Mudder wasn't too bad, but some of the amount of rigs in it in like a general Tough Mudder event, that's one of the things they have a lot of is relatively big rigs. There's still like a sort of epicness that you have with it, and I don't think as much of that was brought over into New Zealand. There was a lot more like low walls they utilised at Hampton Downs, like the creek and stuff, which was great, but a little bit more like tough guy, tough girl sort of, I guess, replicated in a sense. It sort of felt a bit more like that. It was still a very, very fun event, and they still have rigs, but I think probably until there's a bit more critical mass going, they might not be able to, justify the amount of building they have to do for that sort of stuff. And Spartan, honestly, all the rigs and everything are probably exactly the same, but just doing it at Ellerslie Racecourse, it's what I'd call a very tame sort of landscape to be doing some of the stuff in Aussie, like Bright and everything, and some of the ones in other parts. They've got proper trails that you're potentially running, or they might have sandbag carries up massive hills, or there's I guess they utilize the landscape a bit more in slightly more rural areas maybe, or and I'm used to doing like what was the super for a long time was like a 16k course. I think they've sort of reset a lot of it to like a 10k course now, but 16 and 21k and 42k, they were like the ones I really loved doing, which we haven't seen yet in Spartan, New Zealand.
No. Yeah, obviously there's so much.
What's that?
It's going to be interesting to see if we actually see another Spartan for a while.
Well, we'll just have to see, I guess. It's uncertain times.
Certainly is. Yeah. See, they just. I don't know. Did either of you two sign up for any Australian ones?
No, I'm not as confident as you yet.
Well, no, I signed up last year, and they transferred them to this year, and I got an email on Sunday night saying Bright is now being shifted to 2022. My tickets have been moved for me, so. Yeah,
I mean, the funny thing though, there's lots of great local events that have happened and still either happen or have happened over the years. I mean, we had was it the X race we had for a while, and then Matakana's done some great ones. You had a whole bunch of little ones that sort of popped up for a year or two, and I've done most of those, and they were all great. And you've obviously still got the well-established like Tough Guy, Tough Girl, which is a bit more of a mud run than a I guess full-blown OCR, but I mean that's still super fun to do. So there's enough around. It's probably
we had this conversation, me and Max, last week or the week before, about the older ones events here, and they all seem to have died off at the moment. Do you have any insights to why, or is it just, were they before their time? Because AR, adventure racing and outdoor pursuits in New Zealand is big. It's what the world thinks of New Zealand, but OCR just doesn't seem to have taken off.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know 100%. I think there's probably needs to be a bit more publicity and maybe confidence with the accessibility of doing these events. I mean, like this year doesn't, and last year doesn't really lend toward that, because you have these events that are having to stop because they just can't operate, or the maybe the general public don't have enough confidence that they're going to go ahead because of lockdowns and stuff. But I think even back then, there probably just wasn't enough interest in the sport for there to be enough entry to maybe make it viable. Because, you know, a lot of these event organisers, when you're putting rigs up and building stuff, not just using a landscape for like trail running, say, or adventure racing, you know, there's a lot of cost involved. So I guess we just have to really build the community up and then all support each other in a sense of like, you know, knowing that there's stuff out there, but also going out of our way a little bit to maybe participate so that we get a little bit more numbers going.
It would be good to get a lot more like cross participation, you know, people traveling to events and more of a community going, more of a unified activity. It's something I'd like to see.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing is, like overseas, when travel was possible, like, you know, a few years ago, it sounds weird saying that, you know, there were lots of groups that would travel overseas, and I think maybe some of these smaller events just suffer from not enough budget to market as well, because or maybe there's just not enough visibility in general. Like, but as that sort of increases, maybe people will start to utilize what's in their backyard a bit more, and I think that will just grow the sport in general.
Did you want to talk about some of your experiences with like other outdoor endurance pursuits? You know, doing adventure running and trail running. Yeah.
I mean, it's I the whole thing I love. Like, I guess my whole ethos is I like having like a versatile, adaptable fitness. So anything that's different or new, I'm really excited about. So and that's when I've sort of done things like some off-road multi-sports, like duathlons and stuff, like the Rotorua Blue Lake series, or that's a beautiful place to go. There's all the exterior events. There's a multitude of running events. We did GOAT the other year, the GOAT Adventure Run, which is very, very technical alpine trail run. Man, there's so many, it's ridiculous actually. I've done some. I've done like the Whakatane adventure race. That was pretty wild because the year we did it, there was so much rainfall and so many of the access roads where you're mountain biking for part of the race and then hiking the other half, they were so chewed up that people were literally cutting the mud guards off their bikes because the wheels would stop turning as they were riding down a hill because of the mud accumulation, and then they're just getting thrown off them. I mean, I tried to turn on a corner and I just didn't turn. The bike just kept going straight, and I went straight into an electric fence.
Oh no, it's like an obstacle race.
Yeah, but I mean, they're fun. The thing I love about adventure racing or it's probably more the row gain aspect. There's a lot of thinking involved because you have to navigate, and that can be really fun because you can really stuff it up. So you can't just sort of gung-ho, go as hard as you can and not think. I think it's fun to have that aspect of navigating. And in a country like New Zealand where we've got so much farmland, so much bush and forestry, and it's all quite close, you know, it really lends to that sort of stuff. So I guess if you're into road running or trail running and you are going to progress, that could be a nice progression because it starts to make you, you know, think about stuff a little bit more. And I guess it's just a bit of a fork from OCR in a sense, because OCR you start going into upper body technical skill set stuff, and then I guess basic adventure racing goes more into navigating, but then that adventure racing pulls into, you know, more and more disciplines having to be done. All you have to do is look at Godzone, which I haven't done yet. I will do it. You know, that's, you got like whitewater rafting and some of those event options, and like kayaking and stuff, and you actually have to get certifications for some of those things before you can even do the event. So so the skill set required is potentially massive, and you have to navigate in something like Godzone. So yeah, there's some cool stuff out there. I think people just need to get out there and not be too scared about what they can and can't do. I mean, you obviously don't want to go in blind and be silly. And if you've never run more than 5K, go and sign up for an ultra marathon. I mean, that's a potential recipe for disaster. But just getting people together and trying out like the base version of an event, like whether it be a small time frame, like a 1.5 hour adventure race, or, you know, with an obstacle race, things like doing some of the local events like Tough Guy, Tough Girl, that can be a really good lead into doing slightly more technical OCR races. Yeah.
Yeah, so on your coaching, is that something you're trying to do through AscendFit, is trying to coach people for like these sort of events?
Yeah. So basically, it's basically trying to give people really adaptable fitness with, I guess, quite a big endurance focus. So, and I like sort of explaining some of the definitions of these terms because I think they get thrown around and get a little bit watered down sometimes. Like endurance only means extended performance. So it doesn't mean you have to be some absolute whippet marathon runner that can't do more than 5 press-ups. That's not what endurance athlete means. It just means whatever discipline you're choosing in terms of OCR, adventure racing, or running, and then whatever, I guess, distance or time period you need to go for. It's about creating the best performance possible and extending it for that period that you have to. So I have athletes that are quite big units that would probably love doing like a short form OCR or something that involves a bit of power, but not for that long. And then I've got people there, maybe their upper body strength is not their strength. So they'd rather go into an event where like running or sustained speed has a big benefit for them and they'd go into that. So, but I definitely love working with people that want to apply themselves into either events like that, whether they be running, OCR, trail running, or adventure racing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess getting into your coaching, asking you some questions about that side of things now. But I mean, talking about all those different aspects of, power and endurance and running, and so how do you train someone for, I guess, OCR program when there's so many aspects? You got to get good at running and technical aspects and muscular endurance and grip strength. And does that make it hard to program?
I think a little bit, but also it probably just, as a coach, you just need to do a little bit more research than maybe what you see in a normal gym. So a lot of people, when it comes to, I guess, personal training and strength and conditioning, a lot of people follow a really basic bodybuilding sort of format or isolated training regime. So I guess just bicep curls, tricep extensions, a lot of machine work. And although there's benefit to that stuff, it's usually more of a benefit with that stuff if you've got a weakness in one of your muscle groups that leads to some form of potential injury creeping up. It's not necessarily how you should train for performance itself. So I guess in answer to your question, I've done a lot of run coach training. I've done a lot of the Arthur Lydiard, courses, and I've also done a certification through the UESCA, which is a relatively well-rounded, quite a big course on run coaching specifically, and they do other stuff like triathlon coaching, mountain bike coaching, ultra coaching. And I think the key is if you're going to be in these sports where running's such a big component, you probably need to really read up and learn about how to coach running properly and be really good at that, because that's a very key fundamental. And when it comes to the strength training, you just have to really understand how to weave that in and not have those two different types of training overload your body. So the key really comes down to, you can do anything, but most people overwork an area and it leads to injury or a plateau. So how you do it really well is you lay in just enough to be getting a relatively consistent gain, and then also knowing how to layer in recovery weeks before you need them or just when you need them. Yeah, I hope that sort of explains it without getting too technical.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite fascinating how, I guess, it's a new sport, new way of training as opposed to, I guess, a lot of people have that marathon sort of training mindset where they just train running, and OCR is fascinating, bringing in multiple aspects. One thing that does interest me in OCR is this idea of compromised running, where you need to be able to run when you've just carried a sandbag and you fatigue your muscles, and you need to be able to go straight back into running again. Is that something? How would you train to be able to run compromised?
Well, some of it I think comes down to when you're running. Look, I'm not saying that the way I do it's the right way or the only way, but just from what I've researched and practiced and trained myself with, I generally find that when you start running, it's a fine balance of how much you should run. So probably only 3 to 4 times when you start a week. But you can build on that as you progress as a runner. So as you condition yourself, you can lay in more training sessions. It might just be smaller distances or variation of training. But some of that, I guess, pure recovery or running under fatigue, some of that actually just gets dealt with layering your training sometimes and almost overloading the training frequency fractionally before doing a recovery week. Some of it comes down to, with resistance training itself, when you layer that in, not necessarily going heavy, but doing a lot of high volume reps at like what you'd call, I guess, a medium load, and that could even just be body weight, like body weight lunges. But there's lots of things I've done that have helped a lot. Like I've done in the morning something called a 100 workout, where in 5 minutes you have to complete as close to 100 reps as possible on each leg on lunges in a 5 minute period, as unbroken as you can, resting if you need to, when you need to, and you can add load if you want to, like dumbbells. But then you do that in the morning and then go try and run in the afternoon, even just a slow pace, and oh my gosh, you'll feel it. But your body will really adapt to anything you throw at it as long as you don't overdo it. Like the stimulus has to be enough. Yeah, and each individual, I guess, would have a different requirement for that. And it's your job as a coach to understand what that is and what level this person's coming in and what their strengths and weaknesses are and how to do that well.
Yeah, I guess at a personal, for my personal benefit, question is, I was running in the last Warrior race I entered. The Warrior has some quite heavy sandbag carries. I think probably the heaviest in New Zealand, actually, heavier than Ultimate Athlete or even Spartan here. But there was two sandbag carries in the last race, and they just killed me. Like I was slowed down majorly and got past, and managed to pass some people back on the running portion again. But yeah, what are some tips for being able to, I guess, not only carry heavy loads, but being able to move fast with the heavy load?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, you can do a lot of interesting things. So I think the key is just making sure your foundation is strong. So having a good core and being able to, I guess, hold your center of gravity in a stable way. It'll potentially undo 50% of that extra work that it would be having to do if you were not holding strong. So every time your weight tips to one side, you have to work like 3 times as hard to get yourself back to center, if that makes sense. So that can be probably one of the most beneficial things. I mean, the other thing is people will mainly run in a comfort zone. And I don't mean that as in like people are lazy. I just mean that you've got your own, people call it zones or a whole bunch of stuff if you're in the running world. There's like threshold training where you're I guess, over pushing past your sustainable intensity, and you get a little bit of a lactic buildup and stuff. And with all that sort of intensity that you throw in, you're going to get an elevated heart rate. And a lot of that discomfort for most people is that elevated heart rate, that trying to get oxygen in your lungs to combat what your body's telling you it needs to do, and then also to move with weight. And those 3 things can really be quite overwhelming. So from a training point of view, doing some high intensity work, whether that be hill running or doing a little bit of running with potentially a weighted vest on once every 2 weeks or something like that, that stuff can really help. And if you combine that with a strong core and some good resistance training, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you'll definitely see a massive gain in what you felt.
That's definitely fascinating.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw one into you, Liam.
Yep.
How do you stay motivated in these times now? Like we're about to go into our 5th week of lockdown here in Auckland.
Oh, that's a good question. It's interesting. Like I'm a bit of a workaholic. I mean, anyone that knows me knows that, and it's for good and bad. And sometimes my training personally can suffer because of, I guess, my commitment to other people when it comes to coaching people. So I've got a rule where if something happens where I'm a bit overloaded, and this applies same for a lockdown, I just remember what I have heard a number of times, and even actually on one of the Dirt Church radio podcasts where they interviewed Kurt Craywood, who's an incredibly talented running coach in New Zealand. And he always said, he goes, the majority of your gains you're going to get from running, because it is an aerobic sport, is through aerobic training. And what they're basically meaning is slow as they go. So lower intensity, sustained running. And I don't think it's that hard to motivate yourself if you don't feel like you have to hit a pace. So even though I've got my Garmin watch, I just put the time on it. I mean, I'm tracking it, but I'm not looking at it. And I just go out with my dog who wants to pee every 5 minutes and, sniff around, and I just go have fun. And I just go enjoy it, and there's no expectation. And I know that if I'm doing that, the right amount of frequency, relatively right amount of sort of weekly mileage, I'm not going to go backwards necessarily, and I'm still going to be building that aerobic base. So I guess that's my autopilot. If I'm feeling overwhelmed and I don't feel motivated, I just go out and have fun with very small expectation apart from time on feet.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Oh, no, it's like,
Yeah.
It probably will.
Because I mean,
advice.
The worst thing you can do is be stressed or feel demotivated and feel like you don't want to go, because the expectation of yourself is too high in terms of what you think you need to complete. So, I mean, when you listen to what Kurt Craig was saying about when he used to, go and train with the Kenyans in their camp and stuff, or coach them, and all the stuff he was doing, he said they'd do a training session. 80% of their training was just slow, relaxed pace. And he said half the day they'd spend sleeping. So, I mean, when you think of athletic performance and how you train, you might see the exciting, explosive work or the hill training, the interval training, or, progression runs, all that sort of stuff. But that's probably still only 20 to 30% of what you should be doing. Otherwise, you're just going to cause inflammation in your body because the intensity is so high. So do some long, steady distance and you'll be good.
OCR in New Zealand, where would you like to see that go?
That's a good question. I mean, I would just love, I'd just love to see some consistent events spread throughout the year, or at least, in what may be called a season. So trail running, generally will mainly be in the winter months or spring, winter, autumn, that sort of time. But it would be great to see that sort of consistency with OCR. And I think that all comes down to, though, people that are interested in OCR, not just thinking they're interested in it, but actually going out and doing their part and trying to make sure they're going to one or two events a year at least, because that's like the only way, I guess, event organisers are going to be able to continue trying to put these events on is by having an increased participation. So we just want to go out there and support these guys. Not very many of them are out there making big money, I don't think. I think they're just doing it out of passion, and that's important. It's just an expensive thing to run.
It is. All right. I have one other question for you, which threw Max the other day too. So you can have coffee with whoever you could have coffee with. Who would you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with? Anyone in the world. Why?
Anyone in the world, or and
any history.
Even dead people, anyone historical,
dead people.
Alive or dead.
We're pretty good on this show. We'll bring dead people back for you.
Yeah.
Oh, can I say two people, or it have to be one?
No, we could probably let you off with two. As long as you tell us why.
Okay, yeah. I would really like to have a coffee with Bruce Lee. Although you look back on it now and you see some of the stuff he did in martial arts and just in general with training and the way he tried to reshape a very traditional sort of exercise format, I guess, it was very groundbreaking at the time. And I would just love to understand where his sort of motivation and his thinking was coming from. I'd just be really fascinated because I just think he was quite a unique individual. And the other person is, it's a hard one. I would actually love to sit down with Arthur Lydiard and just listen to his life and how he came up with some of the stuff that he came up with, because I guess at the end of the day, I'm fascinated by people that have learnt to teach and coach and also understood stuff around the human body. I just find it really interesting. So, yeah, I hope that I don't know if that's interesting answers, but
there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
You got any other questions, Max?
No, I think that's it. I think we've learned a lot of interesting stuff about you and your experiences, and some good coaching advice that people can take away. And yeah, definitely if people want to, well, I guess, do you have any other questions, that anything you want to talk about that you wished we would have asked you and you want to talk about now?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's just an area that I'm passionate about. But I just wish people would. I won't say a question. I'll just give people a leaving thought, because this kills my soul sometimes as a coach. And it's you've only got one body, and you should potentially, when you're training, you should sort of think maybe a little bit further ahead than just the event you're doing. And sometimes if you're feeling sick or if you need a break, don't think you're sacrificing your performance by having a break, because I see so many people getting injured or overtraining or having a potentially harmful sort of mentality around what they're trying to do. And I think at the end of the day, most people want to be able to experience and enjoy life and have a longevity attached to that. Like, I want to be 70 and still being able to go and do an event. But a lot of people are really shortchanging themselves, I think, with what they, I guess, do to their bodies. And if that's your goal, maybe just rethink about it and just love and respect your body a little bit more.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
So where will people find you on the media?
Yeah. So we've got AscendFit. If you Google it, I'm pretty sure it'll come up straight away. We've got a website which is just www.ascendfit.co.nz. I think on Instagram we're AscendFit_, and on Facebook we're AscendFitNZ. So it shouldn't be too hard to find us. We've got a little triangle logo, and you're more than welcome, even if you just have questions about stuff and just need a little bit of advice, to flick me an email through our contact form, and I'm more than happy just to get back and give what I can to people so that they feel confident about what they're doing.
Sweet. And we'll put links in the show notes to this episode if anyone wants to find those links and get in touch with you. To the notes on this podcast, people can find your contact details.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure being able to talk to you guys about this stuff and just have a yarn. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll get you back on one other time.
Sounds like a plan.
Cheers. Thank you.